podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes.
Oh dear, the full-time whistle has gone. It's Chelsea 2, Bournemouth 2. And on a night when you just felt as though Enzo Maresca needed a win more than anything, once again, his Chelsea team have come up well short in this one. Let's go through the team. Bob Sanchez started in goal. We had a return to the first 11 for Josh Achampong. Fafana and Chalobah made up the two centre-half pairings. Gusto filling in at left-back. Enzo and Caicedo holding the midfield down. You had Garnacho on the left, Palmer in the 10, Estevao on the right, and Liam Delap starting up front. So, yeah, it was the first time we'd seen Estevao and Palmer play any kind of meaningful minutes. They had a cameo in a pre-season friendly, and they played all of about 4 minutes when they played Man United away before Sanchez got sent off, and that was the end of that. And Bournemouth, who came with a fairly typical lineup, hadn't won in 9 matches, and they've now pushed that out to 10 matches, but it's probably a very good point for them. They will take that all day long. But I've got to say that Bournemouth thoroughly deserved their point. I mean, they could have won it at the very end with the last kick, pretty much, shooting over the bar. But I thought their overall general play was very, very good. I felt as though when they attacked more like the home team than the away team. And defensively, yes, they're not brilliant. And in actual fact, in the second half, they limited Chelsea to clear-cut chances. We had some opportunities, but nothing that sort of made your hair stand up on end when we went through. Enzo shooting over the bar in the second half. But yeah, there were some good opportunities for some starters. Obviously, Josh hadn't had a start for a while, so he came into the team, and I felt as though he struggled yesterday at right back. I didn't think it was his best game. Not to say that he did anything particularly wrong, but I felt positionally he wasn't quite correct. Defensively, in one-on-one situations, I didn't think he was brilliant. His passing, not up to the usual standard, but that's not a dig at Josh. You know, we're quite happy to see this kid play and develop into something. It's more that he kind of just gets thrown in, and it's like he's had half a game and he's out the team again. You know, he comes off at half time. It's just not enough to build any kind of confidence in him and just to allow him to play. Reece obviously didn't start the match, and he comes on at fullback, and he's obviously, in my opinion, possibly one of the best right backs in the world, if not the best right back in the world. So when he comes on, clearly he makes a big difference. But maybe Josh stays where he is, Reece goes into midfield, Enzo comes off. I felt as though Enzo, he's a bit of an enigma, isn't he? He really kind of riles people up, and then sometimes he does something like yesterday, scores a brilliant goal, and you kind of don't know where you sit with him. He's a very hard player to sort of get behind. I've said on the podcast a couple of times that I felt as though his performances have been growing. And I think to some degree they have. I think his levels are much higher than last year. But I think he needs a rest. And I think Reece going into midfield, leave Josh where he was, might have been a better option, just to kind of give the kid some support and some help, because bringing him off at the 45 minutes always makes you feel as though you've made the errors for the goals, or perhaps you were the reason why we conceded a couple of goals and that we weren't winning. And trust me, that goes through a player's head when you get subbed at half time. You always think it's your fault somehow. I hope he doesn't. I think he's sort of got broad enough shoulders that maybe he can get past that. But yeah, again, wasn't his best half of football, but he wasn't dreadful. And young players obviously need a little bit of time, and he hasn't played any meaningful minutes for quite a while for Chelsea, so he's always going to be a little bit rusty. On the other side, I thought Malo Gusto was way out of position on quite a few occasions. In that first half, we got played over. That gap between Chalobah and Gusto was quite vast, and you can see when obviously Cucurella plays what a world-class left-back he is. He doesn't really get caught out in those positions, and I feel as though Gusto's one of those players that once it starts going wrong for him in a game, it continues to go wrong for him. He doesn't really have the backbone to kind of get out of it. When things are going well for Gusto and he's feeling confident and feeling fine, he's a very, very able player. But I've watched him a few times, and I've noticed his sort of trend that if he makes a few errors in a game and he gets out of position, it's very hard for him to kind of get back in. And he doesn't tend to not try, because I'm sure he's trying his hardest, but he gives an impression that he's not trying very hard at times. You know, the goal against Ollie Watkins at the weekend, when kind of he ghosts in behind him and he just scores. He doesn't lay a glove on Watkins, not even touch tight. You know, he's 3 or 4 yards away from him. And again, yesterday, I just felt as though they just got in behind him too many times, and the fullbacks were an issue for us. The two centre-backs, again, didn't cover themselves in glory. We didn't do any set pieces. Once again, corners getting flung into the box were basically scrappy. We were lucky if we got something on them. There's no one who's willing to really dominate that area of the field. And that kind of leads me on nicely to the 2 goals we conceded from long throws. Harry Brook, completely unmarked for the first goal. Should score with the first header. Sanchez got kind of questioned on his goalkeeping. A few people were sort of saying maybe he should have saved. They should have held on to that. I think the distance is too close. It's a powerful header. He's lucky to get anything on it. He's lucky he doesn't just put it in the bottom corner in the first place. The fact that he made a save and then nobody but with the Bournemouth kind of extra runners, and they just had 2 people that tapped it in on the goal line, Harry Brook being one of them. And then the second goal, again, a long throw from our right-hand side, flung into the box, headed on, just one straightforward header. Malo Gusto and Garnacho completely not marking their man at the back stick, and Justin Clive at the back post just literally walked it in for 2-2. And yeah, at this stage of the season, you know, we're into New Year's Day pretty much in a couple of days now. We've gone through an entire half of the year, and none of this stuff is being corrected or picked up or changed. Every single week we play, whoever we play, we just seem to have games, and it's too often where basically anybody from a corner or a set piece just puts it in the box. It's 1 or 2 headers and the opposition have a shot at goal. They don't always score, but I tell you what, they score a lot. And I would say probably it's the most easiest win for an experienced defender to come in and change those things, and someone with a little bit of organisational skills, because basically you've got 2 players at the back post there for the second goal in particular, completely unmarked. Because when you're young and inexperienced, you don't want to take responsibility. And I'm not sure who to blame for that second goal. I think Gusto and Garnacho are probably both culpable. I think Gusto should be very aware there's a player behind him. He doesn't even know he's there. And Garnacho kind of does know he's there, but still does nothing about it. And then he sort of threw his toys out the pram, jumped up and down. And I think, well, that's where you need a leader, a centre-half, a captain, someone to come in and actually point fingers and say, you're marking him, you're going to get that guy, I'm like for like on him. Yeah, we saw it against Villa. Liam Delap, zonal marking at the back post. He was marking absolutely nobody. What I can't understand with zonal marking is, surely there still has to be an attempt to play the ball. So when that ball came across in the Aston Villa game where Watkins just ghosted in and scored, Liam Delap could have walked in and just headed that away. He could see the whole play happen, but he waited in his zone and obviously didn't move. And I think to myself, that to me is nonsense, absolute nonsense. If you know your mate is struggling, Gusto is definitely struggling on that play, that's where you need your big body centre forward, in this case, to come in and help him out. But Delap just stood there and marked nobody and watched Watkins score that goal. And I'll be honest with you, our play from set pieces is barbarically bad. It's so poor. And this hasn't changed. And I'm thinking to myself, at what point are we going to continue to see this? Is it an all season long thing? Because this has got to be down to coaching. You have to coach that out of them. I mean, for God's sake, they've got every metric, every camera, every analysis possible to them at their disposal. Every single game, you'll be going, well, look, that's your man. That's your man. That's your man. And point this stuff out to them. They must be told. Surely they're told that they're not picking up their player from a set piece or something. Because in my day, you would get absolutely rinsed. But I go back to it again. There are absolutely no leaders in this team. No one is willing to point out that's your player, so you damn well fucking mark him. And I think our Achilles heel is massively with set pieces. We can see goals in other areas too, but anything that's a long throw or a corner that comes in, I just fear the worst every time now. And there seems absolutely no attempt to even get hold of it and shake it out of them because, why would you? And it costs you every single fucking game you play at the moment. I mean, it's the biggest area of contention is set pieces. We cannot defend them, and yet we don't do anything about it from game to game. And there'll be those people that say, they're playing too many matches, so they don't get a lot of time on the training field to sort this stuff out. You don't need a training field. You just need the video and highlighted that you are not tracking your player, or you are not going with your runner, or you're not, marking that area of the field that you should be. You're not attacking the ball well enough. You don't need the training session to be told that. If you're an elite level football player, you get told once and that's all you need to be told. You shouldn't be telling every single week. If these boys need telling that from game to game that you're not marking from set pieces, then they're not elite level football players. End of story, okay? Because you don't get told 58 times before you get it right. It's once or twice and you're done. In more disappointing news, Caicedo picked up a booking after 4 minutes, so he misses the Man City game. I'll be honest with you, I thought the foul was not a foul, for one. I don't even think he even made contact with him, and if he did, it was like a brush of the ankle, and the other player just dived over him. I felt very sorry for Caicedo at that moment. I don't think it was a foul at all, let alone a yellow card. And I thought the referee in the first half particularly was absolutely shambolic how poor he was. He didn't give proper fouls. He was letting everything go that was a foul. I just couldn't make head nor tail of him. He didn't seem to give us any decisions at all. He was really willing to get the yellow card out. Far too fast, in my opinion. And he didn't even give Moises Caicedo a chance. I just thought that was really, really poor. But yeah, he's out for the Man City game, which is an absolute disaster for us because, yeah, he's an animal and a great player, even though he looks, I think, a little bit fatigued, maybe a little bit frustrated at the moment with the way the team are playing. He's still going to be a huge miss. I felt as though that Garnacho got into quite good positions in that first half, but again, flattered to deceive. His final touch before shooting, or just that feeling of a winger that he's going to go past someone and smash it with a left foot across the goal. It just never really came. It all got a little bit stodgy for him, and I come back to it. I quite like Garnacho. I don't think he's a bad player, but at the moment, I don't think he's being given enough opportunity. I would have liked to have seen him come out in the second half to at least been given that time to correct one or two things. Even if he gets just 15 more minutes, just sometimes you need speaking to at half time. And again, with all the computer analysis they've got now, just explain to him that when you're in this position here, the fullback thinks you're going to do one thing, so do the other. And I would have just liked to have seen him be given a chance to come back out after half time, but he was hooked as well. I thought Liam Delap was, nothing short of atrocious. I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what we've bought. I knew what we bought when he was at Ipswich. I don't know what sort of player he is now. I've got to say, I thought there were times in the first half where he gave the ball away or he was tracking back and he looked like he was running through treacle. His pace, I always thought he was quite quick, but he seems like he's got no pace. He's not holding the ball up well enough. Ball's bouncing off him. His passing was poor. We had one or two little moments in the first half where he played like a nice pass, but other than that, it was all very drab, very dreary, no focal point whatsoever. He doesn't look like, at the moment, doesn't look like a number 9 at all. He looks way short of it. I don't know if it's, for him, if it's a lacking confidence. He's not scored a league goal for us. Or whether, that weight of that number 9 shirt is sort of weighing heavy on his shoulders. I don't know. But he looks completely and utterly devoid of any confidence, or getting a shot at goal even is difficult for him. And I'll be honest, when I saw him start yesterday, there's moments of mid that go, that's good to see him start. Let's see something today. Hasn't always got a score, but like Giroud, he never always scored, but he always held the ball up well and make you feel as though that he would give you something in the game. And I just feel as though Delap has just got none of that at the moment, and he's been a real disappointment. I'll try and sort of end on a few positives to not feel too negative about the game yesterday. I thought that, Palmer scoring from the spot is a good thing. Hopefully that'll give him a little bit of confidence when he next plays. Obviously, Esteval, he's a pretty good player, isn't he? I think we can all see that. His run for the first goal to create the penalty was fantastic. And it just goes to show you when you've got someone who's prepared to go at fullbacks, that's what happens. He goes past his fullback like he's not even there. And he then gets kicked in the back of the shin, the back of the calf. It was quite a blatant foul, and I don't know how the referee missed that one, but he seemed to miss everything in that first half. And that's exactly where you want to see Semenyo chasing back a winger in his own penalty area. That's what you want from him. You don't want him going the other way and causing you all sorts of problems. So, yeah, really pleased for him. He done very well. I think Rob Sanchez in goal did decent enough. I think he's had a fairly good season overall. He's not really been the problem for Chelsea. I think if we'd have got some of our defensive issues sorted out and we'd been able to score a few more goals, I don't think we'd even be talking about our goalkeeper at all, to be fair. I think he had another good game yesterday. He could do nothing about the first goal. That's my personal opinion. I think the gap is too short between the header and him. And I think he can do nothing for the second goal. And I think overall he made some fantastic saves in that first half. And let's not kid ourselves. Bournemouth could have had 4 in that first half. I think Chelsea could have had a couple more themselves as well. But if we'd have gone in 4-2 down, I don't think we could have had any complaints. They had some very, very clear opportunities to make it 2-0 before it was even 1-1. Yeah, I'm massively concerned with Chelsea's back four. It doesn't seem to matter at the moment who we play. We give up opportunities, we give up chances. Cucurella gives you a shit ton more in the attacking third of the field over Malo Gusto, but obviously Cucurella definitely needs a rest, and it's not his fault that he's played every single match so far this season pretty much, barring maybe the odd one or two. And yeah, I'm not surprised that his hamstrings are hurting at the moment. I think my hamstrings would be hurting if I was him, because he goes up and down that pitch all day long and he's after chase back, 60, 70 yards at a time. It's an awful lot of a load on him. So yeah, pleased that he got a rest, but clearly we miss him badly. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on the second half. The game finished 2-2. There wasn't a lot to talk about in terms of chances made. Yes, we had some huff and puff about us. We got up the pitch now and again, but so did they. I think, we could easily sit here and say, we could have won the game. We could have easily lost that game. Easily lost it. And I don't think it would be fair for me to come on here and say, we missed an opportunity here or there, because Bournemouth were well in that match up until the last kick. And like I said, they could have easily won the game at the end. The boos at full time, at half time, when Cole Palmer was substituted, when Esteval was substituted, they were deafening. And I don't really know what Maresca's plan is, what his end goal is here. Obviously, he made those remarks in the press a few weeks ago. Was that a cry for help? There's been certainly rumours that, was he trying to get himself the sack in some ways by doing what he did? Does he want out of the club? I don't know. The way the club is going at the moment, the sporting directors are really, really under the spotlight for how the squad has been made up, what we've been left with, players that have been moved on, the ones that have come in. It's fine if you want to sell Madueke. It's fine if you want to sell Nicholas Jackson, for example, but what is coming in has to be of equal or better quality. And at the moment, I don't think anybody is seeing that in those key areas. Esteval is clearly a great player and an upgrade there, but for the most part, as Chris went through last week, a lot of these players that have come in are nowhere near ready. But having said that, Enzo Maresca should be getting a whole load more out of them. And the way he chops and changes his team every single week is becoming draining, it's becoming monotonous. The fun and your desire as a fan to go every single week to watch matches becomes like a drag. And I can tell you, it happened under Graham Potter, where the fans almost tapped out from watching games. Then Frank came in for that spell, his second spell, and he could understand that there was massive problems at the club. And even when Frank came in, the fans just couldn't get behind that team at the time. Then we had Mauricio Pochettino, who came in, and I think the supporters got behind him and the team a little bit. We had some fairly decent results at maybe not at the very beginning, but sort of that point going up to Christmas with the 4-1 win against Spurs, if you remember. I think there was a little bit of hope that we might go and do something that season. Again, not win the league, put ourselves in a position where we can fall in love with the team again, but that quickly evaporated. And before you know it, he was gone. And then obviously Enzo Maresca comes in, and this kind of process talk is going to take a couple of years, could be 3, could be 4, who knows. But like we're now into this team and this process. We're quite a long way into it now. And I just don't see that we're really at the point where we can go, oh, I can see that we're doing that well. Oh, and that's much better. Like, for example, is Enzo Fernandez that much better than he was last season? I don't think so. You know, is Trev and Fofana, are they that much better as a partnership than they were last season? We don't know because we don't see it often enough. Is Liam Delap a huge upgrade on Nicholas Jackson? That was a good decision. I don't think so. There's a lot that we can say about the side. And I think the fans, not just the match-going fans, the ones that watch on Sky Sports and TNT and all the rest of it, that there just doesn't feel like everybody's pulling in the right direction. And I think maybe a couple of months ago, you felt that perhaps he was building something. And with results the way they went last year in that period after Christmas, that was just complete and utter shit. I mean, we couldn't win a game for love nor money. But we've now gone 2 wins in 10. And one of those, as I say, was against Cardiff. We've beaten Everton at home in that time, and we've lost or drawn every other game since that Barcelona match, which is really alarming. And Man City away coming, I don't think anybody's got the confidence that we're going to go and win there. So you think, well, let's just say, we hope we can, but let's say that goes to another defeat. That's 2 wins in 11. And you're thinking, wow, you know, how long has Maresca got here? You can't go through this sort of run of matches without some kind of comeuppance. Not to say that he has to win every week, and I don't think that, but the football isn't good enough. The football is drab, and he as a manager says the same inane things on a weekly basis in press conference. He doesn't give you anything of any meaningful substance that makes you go, oh, right, yeah, he wants to do this. He's keen. He wants to be our manager. If anything, he wants to get out of the club by the comments he made last week. So as a fan base, we need to sort of decide, what do we want? Do we want to see Maresca stay at the club and try and work through some of this stuff? Or do we want to see him chopped out for a new manager and the whole thing starts again? But all I would say on that is, if you do wish for Maresca to be sacked, don't think for 1 second that you're going to get an absolute elite manager coming to this team. Now, look, who knows? Maybe they do, and I'd be all for that. But I don't see it. I feel as though we're going to get another manager more in the same lines along as Enzo Maresca. And let's just say for 1 second that it was Liam Rosenior, who's the manager of Strasbourg, who obviously Blueco is the company of Keerlake. If that was the case and he was to come in, there is no guarantee that he or someone like him would have any change in our results. And all I would say is, it's fine to wish for Maresca to be sacked. If that's how you feel as a person, I say, fine, you stick to that, and that's all good. That's your right to do that. But if you think you're getting Carlo Ancelotti, you're not going to get him. And the results will not change. And this process of young players coming in, untried, untested, but they've got potential, I think is going to continue for some time. And I'm desperate. And I hope the owners can see from the outside that they're not everybody's favourite people at the moment, particularly inside the ground when watching games. Those boos, like I say, are getting louder and louder every single week. And this defiance to not go and buy some experience is going to grate on people, and the match-going fan is getting more and more pissed off. I know the people at home who watch on TV from abroad or from the UK, who watch every single game, get up really early like they do in the States and what have you, to watch these matches, must be feeling like, why'd I get up for that one again? I can't be bothered. So, yeah, there's some huge questions for Chelsea to be answered. I don't know if Maresca's under any sort of pressure. He didn't give his press conference last night because of illness. That's what we were told. Who knows? It could be something else, but I think it was just illness. We go to Man City next week, and that is going to be a really difficult game. I don't see how we can overturn them the way they're playing. They're on a really good winning run, and we are certainly going the other way at the moment. But I will just reiterate, if you want Enzo Maresca sacked from this football club, and I don't know what I want, I'll be honest with you, because I don't see that elite level manager coming in round the corner. All I see is another manager, a bit like Enzo Maresca, who is going to be developing himself. And you might find that Chelsea might win a couple of games at the start with a new manager, And then before you know it, they go on a 3 or 4 game losing streak, because that is what happens when you're a rookie and you're not used to the Premier League. So look, we'll see what happens in the next few games, the next few weeks. If Chelsea get battered by Man City, our questions will absolutely have to be asked of the manager and what is going on, because surely they say they don't want to get rid of him. They say all this behind the scenes, but how long do you give it before Chelsea fall further and further behind? Because they're now, okay, they gained a point on Aston Villa yesterday to go to within 9 of them. But obviously, Man United didn't win, but Liverpool didn't play. So we're 2 behind them and they have the game in hand. If they win that, they go 5 ahead. And before you know it, 4th place and 3rd place could be way off into the distance if you're not careful. And I think if teams like Liverpool and Villa get on these runs like they can do, they're going to be very hard to catch. And we're not currently playing well enough to be in that conversation. And no one really knows Chelsea's financial situation when it comes to FFP. But if they don't make the Champions League next season for some reason, and look, that's not a given yet, but if we don't make that next year, I think our finances will be very under scrutiny, because we have outlaid a lot of money and we have to sell players from our current Champions League squad next year for that to balance across the European finances as well as the Premier League ones as well. So it's a huge few months for Chelsea and what they do with this manager, because I didn't think they thought they'd be in this position. I think they thought they would be the ones chasing down Arsenal, Man City a little bit, maybe not right close to them, but they'd be in that mix 3rd and 4th comfortably. But at the moment, we are miles away from that. In terms of our points and the way we're playing, not so much the position, because 5th place is not miles away, but it feels like a long way with the way the team is playing. I'll leave my note there for this week, and I will follow up with Man City on our next time around, which will be our 100th show. I know Chris has got a lot to say on Enzo Maresca. I feel as though he's very disappointed. He's very upset with how things are going. Not just his management style and the style of football so much, but their substitutions and how we're going about it in terms of Chelsea needing to win games, and yet he still makes these subs with Palmer and Estevao and what have you. He has got a lot to say on that. And frankly, I'm very much looking forward to hearing what he has to say. As I've gone on a little bit longer this week, I'm going to leave my note to 1, and I'll be back for the Man City review. And even though my heart says we can beat anybody, my head knows better. And quite frankly, I don't see us having a cat and hell chance against them. But who knows?
Okay, it's the morning after the game, and I quite deliberately decided to leave it till this morning to do the voice note, because, to be honest, I was a bit worried last night that I'd say stuff that I didn't really mean and wanted to sleep on it and see how I feel in the morning. And actually, the way I feel in the morning is pretty similar to how I felt last night. And it's always tricky, to be honest, doing a podcast, especially one where we are effectively doing a new episode every 3 or 4 days, to make a statement that you might then regret. Because what I'm about to say about Enzo Maresca, I may well look very stupid, and in a month's time, I might be saying something very different, because we might go on a brilliant run of wins. We might win at Man City, and as we've seen everything kind of go wrong in the last 6 or so weeks, it could very much flip the other way. We know that. That's the nature of football. It's a results business. But recording this on New Year's Eve, I'm just going to tell you how I feel. And that is that I woke up this morning checking my phone, hoping that he'd been sacked. And when he obviously pulled out of the press conference with a sick note last night, there was a part of me that was quite excited, thinking, okay, maybe that's a bit of a cover story, and really he's having a meeting with the board and maybe they're parting ways. So that's just my genuine reaction this morning, and I think it kind of, without even overthinking it, just tells you what kind of where I am in my head. And I want to break it down into 3 areas. So I'm going to talk about Maresca, and then I'm going to talk about why I think we could replace him and improve. Part 1 for Maresca, I think, is the one that, if we take all of the results part of what we've been doing recently, and it has been very up and down. It's been pretty up and down for the whole of Maresca's kind of Chelsea journey, in that we've had really good spells and then really bad spells, and there's been very unpredictable to know kind of what spell you're going to go into next. But we take out the results and just talk about the football. And as fans, I think we have a right to say, very simply, do we enjoy watching our team play? And I know I'm not alone in finding the football that Chelsea play more often than not drab and boring, monotonous, and just not something you particularly look forward to going to the bridge or turning on the TV, or, like Joe says, checking in at all hours. I know we've got fans everywhere who watch, looking forward to that game because you know the football is going to be brilliant. And the reason that is such a big point for me right now is I said at this one of the podcasts at the start of the season that I thought this year might be a bit up and down. We've still got young players. There's still going to be gaps in the squad. But I really thought it was going to be fun to watch. I looked at the talent we have at his disposal. Joe talked about Esteval last night. I honestly thought he was unbelievable at times. The way he was trying to drag us back into the game in that second half, I thought he was superb. Having him and Palmer on the pitch, it should just be a joy to watch, and we should be loving every minute. And yes, people like João Pedro and Delap are frustrated at times, but the talent is there to be getting more out of those guys. And there is so much quality. There is so much ability in the squad. It should be fun watching your team play. It's an entertainment business. It's, I would hark back too often at times, I know, on the pod, but, I fell in love with Chelsea going with my dad in the 90s, watching the likes of Gianfranco Zola, Roberto Di Matteo play football. And do you know what? They played with a smile on their face and it was fun to watch. I see Cole Palmer and Esteval and I see exactly the same thing. And I look at them and think, I'm not sure we're getting the best out of you guys. And you look at Palmer's frustration and almost his disbelief coming off the pitch yesterday. He was looking at the fans, wasn't he, as he was walking off, just like looking at them with a, yeah, I know kind of expression. And I just think we're wasting. And my real worry is what's going on in Palmer's head. And if we mess up with Palmer and Esteval, then there's no forgiving that for me. It goes back to a kind of De Bruyne Salah sort of situation, which at the time you could just about make excuses for because we had other players in their positions. They never quite delivered in a Chelsea shirt, but we cannot mess up again and make the same mistake twice. And in Palmer and Esteval, you have two players that really could lead you into greatness if you can manage them in the right way. I really do believe that. And fundamentally, I don't enjoy watching Chelsea play many, many times that we play. More often than not, I find the football boring. And ironically, I would say where Chelsea, and I mentioned this briefly on a previous pod, but ironically, where Chelsea have been probably the most fun to watch and where it has been thrilling, and I think where we've got actually our best results, has been when Maresca's thrown the game, his typical game plan, out the window. So the PSG game, the Barcelona game, where we've gone really direct, full throttle football, not possession for possession's sake, but really played with an energy and an excitement that we just is not the default. So that's my point one. My point two is more on what I would call his general management of the squad. So part one of this for me, and Maresca isn't alone in this, it's a bit of a modern management thing, but the lack of tactical flexibility absolutely infuriates me. Without even looking exactly how Chelsea are going to set up in terms of it's, of course it's different when we're in possession, out of possession, but it doesn't change. It's a back four with two holding midfielders, a three behind a striker, right? Managers of old have come in, whether that's Conte or Tuchel. You know what? Lampard did it as well. He was pretty flexible in terms of when we'd play a back three or a back four. Why is there no willingness to have a look at the problems we have and think, do you know what? Maybe we could try something different. I wonder if wing-backs would work for us. I wonder if a different system in midfield might get more out of him. Maybe go to a 4-3-3, whatever it might be. I'm not going to say this is the answer. My point is the lack of what I see as a willingness to change and react to poor form infuriates me. And we don't see what goes in the training ground. We only get to see kind of what the squad lines up as. So we can have an opinion on that. And I don't like the lack of changes that we see there. The set piece thing that Joe mentioned earlier angered me more last night than anything else that I saw on the pitch. And they say that the definition of insanity is doing the same things and expecting a different result. Well, Chelsea have taken that to the next level because let's wind the clock back. When we played away at Wolves in the League Cup, we were an absolute disaster on set pieces. It felt very similar to last night. Every time Wolves put any kind of free kick, corner, or throw-in into the box, it was absolute pandemonium, and it looked like scoring every time. And if you remember, our next game was Spurs away, and I previewed that game saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure Tottenham are going to score from a set piece because Spurs are very dangerous for set pieces, and we are a disaster. To come that game at Spurs, we come up with a master plan of leaving 3 players up. And from every throw and corners, the 3 attacking players sprinted up the pitch, and Spurs obviously had to leave effectively 4 players back. It created space. Rob Sanchez was brilliant, came and claimed every ball, and Chelsea quite rightly got lauded for an excellent tactical approach. Again, not genius, and one that Chelsea used to do under Mourinho like 20 years ago, but the point is, it worked. Fantastic. We then played Arsenal at Stamford Bridge, the best team in the league for set pieces, and we did it again. And again, it got lauded. I saw so many online videos of Chelsea have shown the rest of the league how to deal with Arsenal set pieces. It played to our strengths. It was superb. So I'll give you a new definition of insanity, is working out how to fix your issues at the back and then reverting back to the problem you already had. And it was, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing yesterday when I was watching Garnacho and Esteval both in the box for long throws. It did exactly I almost laugh. If you don't laugh, you cry. It did exactly what you didn't want it to do. It absolutely congested the box. You've actually got 2 players in Esteval and Garnacho who don't want to be there. Garnacho loses his man, I believe it is, for the second goal. He doesn't want to be back there. He's a liability trying to get him to pick up a man. So just push him up the pitch. You push them up, Bournemouth end up leaving 4 back, and it's a completely different situation in the box. And I actually genuinely am just baffled by that. I just don't understand it. And things like that, you can't blame the sporting directors. You can't blame anyone else. That has to be with the manager. And unfortunately, that's just not good enough. And the final thing that I don't think you can put the sporting directors, and we talked about them, and I criticised them, I think, rightly after the very disappointing result against Villa, is just looking at that squad yesterday at Maresca's disposal and playing against a Bournemouth team where, outside of Semenyo, I don't think there's a single Bournemouth player that gets on the Chelsea team. And in fact, there's not many that would get in our squad. So, man for man, Chelsea are so superior to the likes of Bournemouth, and we were lucky not to lose the game. And as Joe said, they had the best chance I think Bournemouth had at the end of the game. Bournemouth had an XG of over 3. They had 17 shots. Chelsea should be, it's the Premier League. You're not going to dominate every game, but this is not a new thing that we're seeing if Chelsea's struggling to play against teams like this. And ultimately, it's just not good enough. And there are too many players I see in the Chelsea squad that, in my mind, Maresca's not. He's either not improving or he's not getting the most out of. And I'm not going to list them off, but I do look at people, someone like Delap, who's coming back from injury. It's going to take him a little bit of time to get his confidence, but he knows him. He knows the kind of service that Delap needs to get the best out of him. He should be getting so much more out of him. And actually, I feel a bit sorry for some of these Chelsea players now who, like Josh Achimpong, Joe rightly said, has almost been hung out to dry. He's a centre-back being played out of position at right-back against Bournemouth's best player in Semenyo, who's probably going to Man City or Liverpool very soon. And then he gets taken off at half-time, and it's just kind of, like you say, what chance has he got? And he probably won't play for 3 weeks. So, to me, there's too many parts of just tactically and squad management for me that Maresca isn't doing enough. And I'll come up to my third point, which is what do we do next? I absolutely hear what Joe's saying in that there are no guarantees that you bring in a new manager and it's going to turn things around. And actually, even if you brought in the biggest name around and you brought in Pep Guardiola, it's not a guarantee. And you just don't know. But I looked at us yesterday and it took me back to when Thomas Tuchel took over from Super Frank. And Frank had done I still say to this point, a brilliant job in his first stint as Chelsea manager. The second one is a write-off, but I don't think there's anything he could have done. But in that first stint as Chelsea manager, he did really well, bringing through all those young players, moulding a squad of new signings. But it clearly needed a change at that point. We were defensively terrible. Quite a few players weren't playing to their best. Tuchel comes in, a brilliant tactician, a great man manager, and turns the season into one that Chelsea get top 4 and win the Champions League by just tactically getting it right, knowing how to manage a squad. And I look at the current Chelsea squad and think a new manager would come in and it would be like a treasure chest if you looked at some of these players to his disposal, the likes of Caicedo, of Palmer, Esteval. I just think they'd look at it and go, I can do so much more with these guys than you currently are. Because even where we've picked up good results this season, even when at times we've looked good, I've always felt the consistency isn't there in performances, and we've said that. But even those games that we've won earlier in the season in the league, we've had some luck, haven't we, along the way? Disallowed goals from VAR against Fulham early in the season. Just lots of moments where it's not very rarely a controlled Chelsea performance through 90 minutes. And I think a better manager comes in and is able to fix that. So the question then is, who do you bring in? And I'm not going to sit on the fence because on our little Chelsea WhatsApp group last night, I threw up the kind of next manager odds of who has been linked to Chelsea, and obviously that the odds are just rumours at this point. But I'm going to throw in 2 names that for me, I would be more than happy. In fact, I'd be excited about them becoming Chelsea managers. Now, it isn't Rosenior from Strasbourg, and I think that if he was to join, and by all accounts he's a great guy and is doing really, really well at Strasbourg clearly, but I think that would be very depressing for how Chelsea are being run, and frankly I think it would be a really, really tough job for him, because I don't think the fans would be on side with the appointment, and I think as soon as it goes wrong he'd be in big trouble. And I think that's important with this appointment, that if Chelsea need to bring the fans on side, and they need to make an appointment that gets people excited. And there's 2 names that jump out to me. And I'm not going to go with Super Frank, although I love him and I do want him back for a third stint. I think he should be left where he is, doing a great job at Coventry and given a bit more time. The first one I'm going to throw out there is Simeone Inzaghi. He's obviously over in Al Hilal, having done a brilliant job at Inter Milan, winning the league, taking them to the Champions League final, winning cups there as well. He's a winner. He's shown he's got tactical versatility. And I think him coming in with that track record, with a new fresh pair of eyes of how to get the most out of this team, would give us something special. Would you get him out of Saudi? I still think that Chelsea is a big draw. I still think we're in the top 10 clubs in the world. So although I sort of said, are we in the top table for managers these days? Well, do you know what? I think we probably are. We're not in the top 5 that we used to be, where we could pretty much get any manager in the world, but I still think we're around the top 10. We're still a Champions League competing team. We're still in the Premier League. And I think if you went in with the right offer, you'd get him. And the second one is an inexperienced manager. He is someone who'd be a risk in the same way that Maresca was, but he's one that comes with the caveat of being loved by Chelsea fans, and that is Cesc Fabregas. Cesc Fabregas is doing an amazing job managing Como in Serie A. He's got them up to 6th in the league, playing a wonderful style of football. Obviously, we know Fabregas would be absolutely loved by the Chelsea fans. He has a song ready to go. And I think he would come in, the way he speaks about football, if you've ever watched him interviewed as a manager and even as a pundit, is incredibly engaging. And that alone, I think, would win over a lot of Chelsea fans, me included. And I just, again, think he would come in, and I'd love to see what he would do with this group of players and getting more out of those attacking players in particular. They're the two names I'm putting out there if they decide to do something. Maresca, again, I don't think they will just yet, although I did wake up this morning thinking they might have done. In reality, they'll give him a bit more time, I think. But as Joe said, if we lose to Man City and then this run continues, they might get to a point where they have to do something, because I think not getting in the Champions League again next season would be seen as a disaster, and Chelsea could drift away from that pack very quickly if we're not careful. Would love to hear your thoughts on all this. It's a hot button topic, isn't it, for Chelsea fans? And are you Maresca in or are you Maresca out? Let us know on our Instagram, or which is 1905 podcast, or by email, which is hello@1905podcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. As Joe said, we're going to be back to do the Man City review for our 100th episode, which is a milestone that we can't quite believe, to be fair, having started this podcast a year and a half ago. Still loving every minute of doing it, even when it's as tough as it is today. And yeah, thank you for listening. And you know what? It's still our beloved Chelsea, isn't it? Every little thing's going to be all right. See you next time. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.